Morning. Today is April 3rd, 2024. The time is now 9 a.m. I'm Kevin Day, Chair of the Custer County Board of Commissioners, and I will call this meeting to order. If you have cell phones, if you could please silence them at this time. If you would join us for the pledge and for the invocation. Please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. And please join me for the invocation. Heavenly Father, we come before you this morning, Lord, and we thank you for this beautiful day that you've given to us. And we thank you for the moisture that you've sent. Father, we just thank you for the way that you care for your people. And we just ask, Lord, that as we come together here today, that you would guide us. We ask that you would give us your wisdom, your direction, and help us to make the proper decisions here today. We pray these things in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Kelly, could we get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Day.
Here.
Commissioner Kanda.
Here.
Commissioner Epp.
Present.
County Attorney Dan Slater.
Here.
And Clerk to the Board Kelly Camper present.
And audience introductions. We'll start over here.
My name is Sarah Fisher. I'm with Family Crisis. Mary Mallory, I'm with Planning Commission.
John Van Dorn.
Dorothy Carson, Planning and Urban.
Mike Chester. James Gilbert.
Ann Roby. Marcy Gray.
Roger Gray.
Paul Young. Joel Duck, DV.
And Creative.
Jim Shaplin.
Alexis Henslow, Department of Human Services.
All right, thank you. And if anyone goes to speak later, if you could identify yourself for the record, please. We have about 5 or 6 online. Darla, Debbie, Nadine, Nancy, Sennels, and one that's not an actual name, I don't believe so. Anyhow, any amendments to the agenda?
None from me either.
We have minutes from December 12th, December 13th, and March 27th.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from December 12th, 13th, and March 27th meetings.
I'll second that.
And I have a motion on the floor to approve the minutes from December 12th and 13th, as well as March 27th.
Excuse me.
Any discussion on those?
No, sir.
Hope they're good.
That being the case, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. The motion carries. Commissioner items, Commissioner Epp.
Well, we got outbid for the after prom party by $1 by Silver Cliff. So
let them.
801. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But anyway, just kind of a funny note on the side there. They had 500 budgeted and they found an extra $301 to. So
801.
up us by $1, so we lost out. So anyway, the kids will have a good time and they'll be protected and safe and provide them something on the side. So that's a good thing, I think. I just want to make mention that April 25th, our meeting is on Thursday. The BOCC meeting is on Thursday instead of Wednesday. So
Did you get that, Jim?
so April 25th, it's on Thursday at 9 o'clock, not on Wednesday. So, putting that in, and then, working on the plumbing issues for the upstairs bathrooms, so we'll get that fixed around the 19th of the month, that weekend, so. Replace that old piping in there. That's pretty much all I got for the moment.
Ready, sir. Mr. Canada.
Two quick ones. I have the best news ever reported in Valley today.
TV, yeah.
The TV guys are installing the hardware and a TV will be on channels 11 and 13 on Tuesday. So that they're going up, Vince is grading the road today, make sure they can get up there. He's gonna take a look at it.
Comment on that if I may.
He said he was gonna look at
He
it.
said they're plowing, the ice is bad.
Did he?
He can't make it up without chains today, so tell your TV guys to bring chains so that they can.
That's a good idea. Well, they better bring chains.
Better bring
They
chains.
better get them up here.
Or hoof it up there because that needs to happen.
It's on the north side too, and so that ice won't melt out between now and then.
That's correct.
So anyway, they'll be installing that. He's gonna come up Friday and look at it, maybe even start doing some things, but if he doesn't make it Friday, it'll be Sunday, Monday and Tuesday. They're gonna be online on Tuesday. And then I wanted to make mention also, we have a airport board meeting we're gonna have tomorrow, where they're gonna go through the business plans that we've got, capital improvement and all that. Show us around what their plans are. So looking forward to that. It's posted online. And that's all I have for now. I bet I think of something else later.
All right, might be too late, but we'll let you. All right, yesterday afternoon, I did meet with the Conservation District Board in regards to the weed situation. They did vote to facilitate moving the weed board forward. Not all members of that board wish to be weed board members.
Okay.
But they voted to basically take it on for 1 year. There are 3 members there that are going to sit as weed board members, are willing to. They're going to draft a letter to come to us with to approve that and to sit them as on that board, as well as changes to the bylaws that they feel need to be taken to where they can take on this responsibility. So we would need to look at 2 things when they come. I was hoping they'd all jump on board, but I'm happy that they're willing to facilitate it, even the ones that aren't
Okay.
wanting to sit on the board and to move that forward. So those 2 items will be forthcoming.
Okay.
And that'll be all that I bring here today. Dan, do you have anything?
I do not.
Okay. I guess I shouldn't look at you. I should look at Mike to see if he has anything for us. Do you have anything for the board today, sir?
I do not have anything at this time.
All right. You have your own line item on the
I see
agenda, by
that.
the way.
I see that. You're very privileged.
And for those of you, I don't believe I introduced you last week properly. For those of you that don't know, Mike Chesser is our new BOCC admin and PIO officer. So we are happy to have him here with us. So thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
We have no unfinished business on the agenda. New business would be a consideration of the Urbistando short-term rental application. That came to us a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and we have postponed that to this meeting. And we have gotten some additional information. I know I've gotten some emails on it as well. I would open it up for discussion here at the table. I would say that the recommendation that came from the planning commission was, they recommended to not approve. I would ask, I guess. We don't have planning commission members here. Do you?
Got one over there.
Sorry, Mary,
Thanks.
I looked right over you. I was looking over here, sit over here, in case we had any questions, so I guess you get to be the sole representative there. And, Sophie, I appreciate all the information you've gathered for us as well. I would guess I'll speak first since we're not all jumping at the bit here. This is the third time that this has been before us. First time, there were issues. Second time, possibly this time, I believe, from what I am seeing, is that most, if not all of those have been corrected. I do understand the concerns of the neighbors. But at the present time, I am looking at all of the requirements that are put forth in the zoning resolution have been fulfilled, I believe. So that's where I am sitting at the present moment.
Got anything, Lucas, on?
So I'm still, the road easements, do we, there's no road easements, there's no written plan for road easements, I guess, that we have found.
I'll go ahead, I'll interrupt.
I find that when we check all the boxes and all the boxes get checked, or let's say all the requirements of the planning and zoning, should say this document are filled out and we have it. And we have people that pay money to fill this out or to go through the process, and then all of a sudden it can be denied based upon some things that I don't want it to be left up to my feelings up here. I want it to be left up to, hey, that we have agreed as a community to go based upon these rules, and maybe they're not clear enough, maybe they're not shaped in a way that it makes for a clear and concise answer. I guess that's why I asked for this to be somewhat worked out amongst the property owners so that it wasn't left up to the three of us, but here it is, and here we are, and has there been any working out amongst the doctor and or Paul Young and amongst the local property owners and this doctor or the property manager?
Well, I'm Roger Gregg and I represent the other homeowners in the subdivision, or I'm speaking for them anyhow. And we feel like it doesn't behoove us to negotiate, because that would tend to violate our covenants for the subdivision. And if we want to pursue legal action in the future, that would kind of jeopardize it. So
Okay.
that's the main reason we don't want to negotiate with.
Okay.
Well, Roger, since you're representing, when we left it last, everybody understood that we have gone through the resolutions with a fine tooth comb, and we tried to make it very strong and so that people have to conform to it. If they break the rules, then they pay the penalties, in which he did, and we had him come back and look at it. And when we went through all that with you all, you said, well, maybe there, and we asked about your bylaws and whether or not you had a restriction on businesses or STRs in particular.
Which we do.
So that kind of makes it, as you know, the county, the homeowners would supersede that, anything we say. So if we approve this, you guys have already said you're not gonna approve it anyway. Right? We legally or logically, shouldn't be, in a position where if we have a resolution that we all agree to and has been vetted with many hearings to make sure that these properties are treated just like a residence. They're residential. And that's how the state even looks at it. It's a business, but it's classified as a residential piece of property.
For tax purposes.
It's for treatment as a family. Therefore, we treated it that way. If it's got a septic system for 7 people, it's only allowed for 7 people. It can't be changed and you can't exceed that. If you do, you treat it like a homeowner and you bring in a porta potty if you had a potty or whatever. So.
But if you notice in the zoning resolution, it says, according to the zoning resolutions, STRs are classified as businesses for regulatory purposes.
Right, that's because of the taxing piece. I understand that.
Well,
But it's-
taxing
It's,
residents.
that's right,
The lodging tax is applicable at that point.
right.
Is the reason that is in there, but they are considered as
Residential property. And so we've structured our resolutions around that and we understand it. If they break the rules, then certainly, you have to take it to the bus in the end if it's not worked out with zoning and the zoning department. But so it makes it very difficult. So I want to understand right now, he hasn't, you can't find him guilty before you're, you got to prove innocence here. That's where I see, that's what the dilemma that we have right now. Because right now, he did what he should do, and he got a property manager that's in charge and is making sure that the boundaries are marked. Now, if the boundaries aren't marked properly, they need to be marked to begin with.
I'm pretty sure the boundaries are not marked.
Okay, so that's what we want to hear. That's what I'm looking for, is reasons that if it's not ready to be okayed right now, let's figure that out. And that should have been part of the process then when they went through the zoning commission. All we got on the zoning commission reasons was the strongest reason were that the neighbors don't want it. Well, that's not one of the regulations unless they break the rule.
Actually, the zoning resolution says adjoining neighbor's opinion shall be taken into consideration.
That's right. So they were.
Mhm.
And the opinion was
recommended denial.
right. I get it.
Dan, did you speak to the easement situation?
I don't know what's going on with the easement situation.
Would you like for me to?
There is we cannot find on record anything filed for the easement on that.
On any of their
Has
properties.
Existed since they put that subdivision in, and it does access all of the properties there.
So is that subdivision a platted subdivision?
Yes,
So the road is on the plat?
yes.
So the road, that's what creates the
That's
easement.
what's there then. Most roads in subdivisions are on private property,
But it's an easement.
but it is an easement.
By
It
being
is-
part of it.
It is there for the use. I'm sorry, Dan, go ahead.
No, I was interrupting that.
I ask you the question, so I'll let you speak to that.
By being a part of the plat, when the plat was are these 35-acre lots or?
Yes, the 35-acre.
Okay, so the county didn't have to approve it. But by recording the plat, the original owner then dedicated those roads as easements for the benefit of the property owners, so. Everybody has an
I've
equal,
got the plat with me if you want to see it.
everybody has an equal right to use that road to access their properties. even though they may cross private land, that doesn't mean that private landowner has any right to prevent or limit the use of that road.
We understand that. But
He's
we are
still,
concerned about liability in case there's some kind of accident or breakdown or something like
I
that.
believe Dan still has the floor, sir.
Well, I mean, to the extent that landowners are worried about liability, that's nothing that A, the county can address. And B, it's something that should have been addressed in the plat map. When those roads were dedicated, that's an issue between private property owners. That's not an issue for the county to be involved in.
Thank you for that. Did you have more questions for Mr. Green?
Did, you mentioned that the property boundaries, have you talked to him about the boundary? I guess it's the property manager that needs to answer this.
I'm sorry, sir.
So what is wrong with the property boundaries that they're not
I'm not sure
defined?
what the problem is with property boundaries.
Well,
Are they clearly marked? I mean, would somebody that rents the place be able to visually identify where their property, where the property they've rented stops and the next property
On the
starts?
east side, it is, thanks to Mr. Anderson, he has it marked and he's informed me and I inform my guests.
Okay.
Also show the guests, they all have Onyx Hunt app. And they can see on there exactly where the property boundaries are within 3 to 5 feet. The road is the other property boundary. So National Forest on the west side and then the south side. I haven't had one of them even get over there yet because it's pretty rugged.
And then it's the road and Brian Anderson is the other.
Right, yes, sir.
Can I say something?
We're still at the table right now. You'll have an opportunity here in a minute, sir. Unless we ask a question.
Sure.
Anything else, gentlemen?
well, I noticed that, Mr. DeVay did a good job of pointing out some issues. And the bottom of it's compromise solution in place, and I'm not quite sure what that means, except that I'll read it. It says, while neither party is happy, the current arrangement of ignoring long-term rentals is a compromise. And long-term rental in this case is 31 days or more. It favors the applicant who operates a business but is marginally acceptable to the neighbors. The neighbors cannot negotiate with the applicant about conditions of an STR because this would further violate and condone a violation of protected covenants. I'm not quite sure I understand that.
I think what I interpret that is that a long-term rental is also a violation of the covenants, but they basically ignored that violation.
So they mean they can't rent it, any property out. Is that
That's
what
how
you
I
guys
understood
mean?
that.
Is that what that's what it sounds like to me too.
And what it sounds to me, or what it says to me is they've already made with the doctor a compromise saying, okay, we'll allow this even though it's against our covenants. They've compromised some.
And I want to emphasize, just for the benefit of people listening who might not have heard the first go round of this. It's not, the county is not in the business of enforcing covenants
That's right.
of subdivisions. That's in no way the business of the county, and I don't think that's really a consideration for the county in something like this.
Yeah, and you heard my spiel before too. It's this is a right to ranch county, and anything else requires a permit, and that's what an STR is. And we sure do not want to get in the way of a person being able to use his property or their property for what they want to do with it, as long as they conform to those permits. And so that's why it's very difficult here to deny this from our point of view. I can and we take in consideration all the issues that the property owners have. And right now, I can't see where it's been noisy because he hasn't been there to make it noisy. For example, are breaking the covenant or the regulation, and Marcy, I know you're concerned about it. Because in the past, he didn't he? In the past, before we even knew he had an STR he was operating, and he got reprimanded for that, fixed, and he would conform to what the requirements are. So if we don't listen to our own rules and try to obey them, then what good is that? You know, it's, I'd like to see the problem that was created if we approve this before, prove it guilty after, with evidence. Right now, we're supposing it might happen. In my view. Anything else?
Property boundary indicators, did we ever, I guess I'm asking Dorothy, what's the planning commission's, what's their thought on that? What is that? And it's gonna be different based upon the terrain, the property, I'm not gonna, I don't want people to have to drive a fence post in where they're gonna have to come out and drill through rock to put it in there, but what is our markers? What is it to mark, delineate that line when it's not a road or it's not somebody's fence or?
I think it changes per property. It's based on that situation. A lot of times we do make that as a stipulation, that they more clearly outline their property boundaries. Sounds like they have it pretty much outlined. We could recommend that they put some type of property marker like you're talking about, so that it's on those edges that they may feel are not marked as well. Definitely go out and call and take a look at that and make sure that it is.
Yeah, they need to be recognized, or the people that are renting it can't enforce anything.
And then do we have that in the house rules, Paul?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it points to the app that they can use and the other.
Yes, and I let them know they can walk the road, because that's a good safe place with that, it's easy to walk on.
Okay,
Then it's, you're not gonna roll an ankle or, fall down a ravine or anything.
okay.
You just a minute, sir.
I'd like to hear what they got to say.
Well,
Anything else?
Anything else from here at the table? Okay, so I will open this up for public comment then. And as you go to speak, if you could, when I call on you, if you could restate your name for the record, please.
Joseph.
So we will open it up for public comment.
Roger Gregg, and my feeling, and I guess it's up to Dorothy and Mary, that the boundary markers on X, I don't think is a viable solution. For one thing, Mr. Young indicated that it's free. Well, it's free for 7 days. And how do you monitor that everybody's got Onyx on their phone? How do you monitor they're gonna be carrying their phone when they go out walking around? So anyway, I have an exception with that. And if I could, maybe I can read the letter that I sent to the board. Dear Custer County Commissioners, in the March 6th, 2024 BOCC meeting, the Earth's Tonto short-term rental application was discussed. Dorothy Carson stated that the Planning Commission does not recommend approval of the application. A lengthy discussion ensued, and Paul Young arguing for approval, and adjacent landowners, the Greggs, argued for denial. After much discussion, Commissioner Kanda made a motion to table it for a couple of months. The motion died due to lack of a second. Then Commissioner Ebb made a motion to table the business until April 3rd, which is today. And the motion carried. The BOCC asked the Greggs to research the easement so they can present their findings to the BOCC. They also asked that the parties work together to come up with a plan that is suitable for everyone. So we researched the easement and we found there is no recorded easement. We checked through all, but I think we discussed that, and that's, everybody agrees that there's an implied easement. The intent of the road is for residential use by Taylor Creek Highlands property owners and has been used only for residential use by the property owners since the subdivision was created in 1999. Then Roger and Marcy Gregg also visited the Planning and Zoning Office for additional clarification with easements and STRs. Dorothy Carson didn't really have any clarification about easements, but she also stated that she thinks STRs are not classified as businesses. We believe she is wrong. According to the zoning resolutions, they are classified as businesses for regulatory purposes, but are taxed as residential property. And then as far as the negotiation with Dr. Tondo, as we said, we prefer not to attempt to negotiate with Dr. Tondo because we could be violating our own covenants and that could possibly cause problems if we decide to take further legal action. Then I have another section of the other concern for allowing the SDR. We are concerned about our liability in case of injury or death on the part of Highlands Road, which lies
Sorry, Ben.
private property, and feel that we should have waivers from all rental guests indemnifying us from such liability. Since the road is a private road, there is no way to enforce excessive speed or reckless driving. If an STR is allowed, could Custer County have liability? Dr. Urban Tondo purchased the property in August 2021. He apparently did not research the county's short-term rental regulations or the Taylor Creek Highlands covenants because he immediately started using it for his short-term rental business. We immediately noticed a great increase in vehicle traffic on Highlands Road. The neighboring property owner soon complained to the planning and zoning that he was illegally renting an SDR in violation of county regulations as well as violating the subdivision covenants. Planning and zoning notified Dr. Urban Tondo that he was in violation and he stopped renting short-term around the end of September 21 and applied for an STR permit. This application was denied because he was renting before he had a permit. He submitted a new application on 12/31/21. This application was denied on March 1st, 2022 by the BOCC on the recommendation of the Planning Commission. The property has been rented long-term since then. Number 3, Taylor Creek Highlands Protected Covenants, Conditions and Restrictions reported on October 13th, 1999 states no store, office, or other place of business of any kind shall be erected or permitted on any lot, and no commercial activity shall be permitted. Since the covenants state that businesses are not permitted, the road should not be used for commercial activities. Dr. Urban Tonto's use of the road for his access to his rental for the last 2 years is commercial use and therefore not permitted. We have lived here for over 20 years and feel that having an STR on the road past our house would be a violation of our property rights due to increased traffic, dust, and need for maintenance of Highlands Road, as well as the negative impact on the property values of the subdivision. And then also please take note of in the zoning resolution, adjoining neighbors' opinion shall be taken into consideration in the planning commission's decision.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Joseph today speaking on behalf of my wife Elma and myself. We are the owners of lot number 8A, immediately to the south of the subject property. And I would like to state it very clearly that in our opinion, the requirement of the current zoning resolution to clearly mark the property boundaries are not met. it requires that if a parcel adjoins private property and is not separated by a fence or road, there shall be property boundary indicators. That's the duly decided wording of the zoning resolution. There is nothing about cell phone applications or software solution. And we can state unequivocally that the property boundaries are not marked to the south. And yes, it's a bit of an older issue, but we had repeated trespassing incidents in the May-June 2022 timeframe, and we filed a report with the sheriff. So I think this is a clear not meeting the current requirements issue. I would like to talk to two other points. Yes, we understand that the county is not enforcing the homeowner association covenants. We are not asking for an enforcement. So we are not asking the county to issue a cease and desist order. We are not notifying the sheriff. I think what we are asking is don't implicitly condone illegal activity or prohibited activity, maybe it's a better word, by granting a license. Because from Dr. Rubistondo's perspective, well, I got a county license. What's the point? We understand we have to sue him to stop this activity. But again, our request is don't issue a license in the full knowledge that this is an activity prohibited by the covenants. It's a bit of a subtle argument. I appreciate it. And I also would like to talk about the compromise solution in place. I can only speak for ourselves. This has been going on for a while. Dr. Urbistondo did not reach out to us asking for any solution or trying to work out anything. So his approach has been, from our perspective, the application and sending the lawyers. Fine. We believe that we already compromised with Dr. Urbistondo. Quite a bit of the road concerns, the liability concerns relate to the fact that with an STR, the people are constantly changing. And we felt that if we basically turn a blind eye and let him do long-term renting, then the people get familiar with the roads, dusty, narrow winding, slippery, and so on. If we try to negotiate with him on a short-term rental, as Roger so ably said, that would prevent us from, or that would weaken our legal position if we have to go ahead and sue him later. So in summary, what I would like to ask you, we would like to ask you, is to reaffirm the previous decisions. The Planning Commission recommended declining twice after due deliberation. You, at the previous application, again, after due deliberation, declined. And so what I'm asking is reaffirm your previous decisions. From our perspective. Not much has changed. And there is a clear requirement that is currently not being met. Thank you.
Thank you. Good.
I'm Ann Roby. I live across the street from the property. Excuse me. It's not gonna get any better. I have a concern that when you say they've met all the requirements on the list, that doesn't leave anything for you as county commissioners to make a decision about. You wouldn't even need to be involved. Planning and zoning could come to you and say, check, 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 check. But in the regulations, it does state that you need to take adjacent homeowners' input. Now that, we didn't just say we don't like it. We've given quite a few reasons why we don't approve of it. One being that Dr. Urbistando has not been forthcoming with the truth in all cases. He still does not provide on his application a mailing address that works. He put down the property's address, which does not have a mail receptacle. We don't trust him totally. I don't have a problem. I don't think any of us have a problem with how Paul is trying to make this work. And I don't want to have you feeling that that's it. But I think as county commissioners, you need to put your knowledge and your responsibility on top of these regulations. One thing to consider, the more of these STRs we have, the more there are people owning property in this county who do not volunteer, who do not support people with donations. They really don't care long-term because if it's not working out, they can just sell. We who have been here for a while care about the county. We volunteer, we donate, and I hate to see us losing that ability to get that because people want to take advantage and trying to make a little bit of money. I sympathize, but we're talking about lives. They're talking about money. And I hope the county commissioners can rise above the checklist and consider that. Thank you.
Marcy Gray. Well, I'm gonna go back to the beginning of this. Mr. Candy, you did ask us to go back and look at the easements. Well, we spent hours looking at easements. And Mr. Slater, you casually just gave, oh, no problem along with easements. This is this, and this. I have about 50 pages here about easements, whether they're by necessity, whether they're, oh, I've got about 6 different lanes. I won't tell them all. But we researched this and there is no easement and we have our property rights too. This road is on our property, Ann's property, our property, and another family. So we do have rights. And so looking at all these different kinds of easements that can be, they all go back to what the main purpose of this road was. The purpose of this road in 1999 was established for residential housing. And it's been going on for over 20 years. Just in the last 3 years, where Dr. Ned has decided to put short-term rental, long-term rental, or whatever in there. This would require going to court to figure all of this out. Because I'm telling you, you start reading these easements, whether you make an easement, whether you erase an easement, or put it on the plat, it's not on the plat, it's our property. And I think Paul was mentioning that people can walk up and down the roads, enjoy it. They can't. They can get to their home. I'm not sure what easement you're gonna say is because there's like 20 of them. But I do want to read one thing in that I researched out of easements. And this is a quote from a bunch of easement papers. It says, where the writing is silent as to easements permissible uses, courts have determined that the easement may be used for any purpose to which the easement may reasonably be devoted, provided that no use of the easement may impose a greater burden on the Serbian estate than that which was established when the easement was first created. Where used in the needed beyond the scope of the grant easement, private condemnation procedures are available, although that statutory mechanism is outside the ambit of the article. Meaning, we can't sit here today and say they have the right to go up and down the road and do what they want because they are a business and it was established. And it probably wouldn't be handled except when you go to court. And so to be so casual about this easement is, I think, unprofessional. The creation, use, and termination of easements are topics that are often encountered by petitioners unfamiliar with the real estate matters. And I agree, I am unfamiliar, but reading it, there's a reason I'm unfamiliar with it. However, with time and study, attorneys can learn to properly draft new easements, interpret existing easements, explain to the clients whether an easement may be implied, and advise them accordingly. Many matters concerning easements are relatively straightforward, such as drafting an express easement where the parties agree to the essential terms. However, other matters, particularly those involving the interpretation and recommendation of an implied easement, may be extremely complex. And if you start reading about easements, they are extremely complex. In such cases, it may be prudent to seek the experience of an associate with counsel that is well versed in resolving such disputes. So if anything, I don't think it's as clear. We have property rights too. We own that property. It's within our 35 acres. And we know we have to let the people get from Muddy to their place, but they can't park their trucks. They can't walk up and down the road. They can't take their dogs and end up in the Divide's place or in the Greg's place or in the Roby's place. They can't move their snow and put it on Ann's place, which they did right after the meeting when Paul said, I'll take care of it. He didn't take care of it. The snow was moved from their driveway and put on Ann's place. So there's just more to this than that checklist. And one of the things he checks also is when he tells this great story about his wife and him just love it in Westcliff, and they love to be up there, and they get up there every time. That's it.
Thank you. Sir.
If I can briefly respond, towards the end, there was a comment about how counsel well-versed in resolving such disputes should be consulted. To be clear, my private practice, the largest part of my private practice, is real estate boundary disputes, real estate easement disputes. And so I think it's fair to say that I'm well-versed in what easements are and are not. If there is a road designated on a plat map, that is not an implied easement, that is an express easement. And use for a residence, whether that residence is a short-term rental residence, a long-term rental residence, or a residence by the owner of the residence, that's not an expansion of the use of the easement that any court would say it is an invalid use of that road. In my opinion, after practicing litigating easement issues for a quarter century. I don't care what the board does with this particular application one way or the other. I have no opinion on that, but I want to make it clear that I don't think there's a question about the existence of an easement to access this property or whether that easement could be used to access a short-term rental. I think that if that road is on that plat map, there's no court in the land that would stop the use of that road for a short-term rental on the basis of it not being an easement.
One question to clarify in regards to that. Because it was brought up walking up and down the road. So if they're parked out on Muddy and they need to walk into the place, with that being an easement, my opinion would be that they would be able to walk down that. Up and down that
Absolutely,
road.
or take a bike or ride a horse or.
As long as they're not leaving the road.
Right.
And going onto the adjoining property.
Correct.
Just 1 minute.
I will let you speak for 1 minute.
I just want to say, I wasn't talking about getting to the residence. I'm talking about to being out there after they get there, to being on the road with their dogs, with their trucks, with that parked and stuff like that. That's what I was talking about, not getting to the property, but how they use the road.
And I think, given the clarification we had, if they're even parked in the property, if they want to walk up and down the road, with that being an easement, they would have that opportunity. Paul.
Paul Young, as far as the property standards, there seems to be some confirmation on Onyx. I will, because now the purple paint law is now pretty much accepted nationwide. Is that correct? You know?
I don't know. I know, I'm familiar with them.
Okay, I will walk the entire property line and put purple paint on Dr. Ned's side of the property line. Actually, I'm gonna fudge about 5 to 10 feet, just to make sure that nobody crosses over. And let everybody know, if you see purple paint, don't go past that area. As far as the road easement and their worries about it, if I may approach.
Yes, sir.
This is an LLC that's in that subdivision that offers hunts. As you can see, they have a turkey blind on the road, which I'm not sure if easements are considered proper roads, but if they are, that's illegal. You can't hunt on or off of a road.
I think that's specifically a county maintained road, is how that's listed.
Okay. But regardless, they're hunting turkeys on that road.
Okay.
It's a good organization. I don't, you know,
Oh, another place.
don't hold anything against any of that, but the fact that they allow a business there that actively shoots on the road is a little hypocritical to me. But as far as property boundaries, whether we get the STR approved or not, I will take care of that, after the snow melts. So that's all I have. Thank you.
And have you spoken already? I'm gonna start holding the line here. You're allowed one time for 5 minutes and, or we won't.
I
That,
didn't catch what he's talking about, but there's nobody
So-
on our road that has turkey hunting going on.
Thank
And
you.
I want to make sure
And-
that that's clear. He's
and
not talking about us.
please,
I'm
thank
sorry,
you.
I thought you said I could have 5
no,
minutes.
I did not.
Okay.
James,
I'm in the rare position of agreeing with Commissioner Kanda. But it strikes me that the commission is between sort of a rock and a hard place. You do have to follow the county regulations and whatnot, and the HOA or subdivision covenants. Yeah, oh, the other thing is I have absolutely no skin in this game at all. But, you're forced to, protect the rights of those who are abiding by the regulations of the county with respect to all aspects of permitted things. The homeowners in the area are expected to abide by, I guess, the covenants, and they are somehow enforceable. I'm not sure about that. And I assume that homeowners, when they purchase property, are also agreeing to abide by those effective, very, very local regulations. That being said, not knowing specifics, it strikes me as the county is in the place of having to do one thing, assuming the innocence, if you will, of the STR with respect to all the potential issues. The homeowners need to enforce, if you will, their covenants and bring complaint upon the violation or the demonstration of guilt with respect to all the concerns that they have. So in a sense, the county's stuck needing to approve, and the homeowners then are in the position of having to correct an issue that arises based upon everything they're concerned about.
thank you. Well said. Even if you did agree with Bill, so. Give me 1 second here. Sorry, it's noisy. Anyone else? You check on. No hands online.
Let me ask a couple of questions before we call it.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
You have something to say? Okay, you all did a great job. Thank you for everything you've said. It raised a couple questions in my mind, and I want to make it clear. You are an HOA, is that correct?
No,
Why not?
because we don't want to be.
Okay, and an HOA has a lot of power, and here, let me finish. See, because I know. And part of your problem is you all agreed informally that you don't want any businesses. We have a lot of examples of HOAs carrying the flag, right? I know of several of them that will not allow rentals, period, well, long-term or whatever. Because rentals, and I've been in HOAs in my career in both the government and in the military and then the contractor world. And those HOAs actually do have the teeth that those covenants give you. And so, as an example, I've seen even the container rules on an HOA, which was as informal as yours, which happens to be above us off the Reeser Lane between on the north side of the road. And one of the homeowners there had a shipping container. And it wasn't expressly, they had an HOA, a very informal rule, that it's 35-acre deals, just like you all have. And that shipping container was not allowed to be there for more than the construction time it was. And that particular landowner was using it for long-term storage forever, it looked like. So they went to court over it. It didn't last long, and they ruled in favor of getting that out of there. And he had to move that shipping container. That goes on. So I'm wondering why you all don't have a meeting and straighten up what you really believe here and what you want. And I happen to agree. I understand what you're doing. And I'm going to ask this for Dorothy to clarify, because I know she knows the answer. Are these STRs renewable?
Yes, every year.
Every year? Then are they looked at in depth every year on whether they conform or not?
On a written complaint, confirmed written complaint basis.
And those are the things that we look at to listen to the landowners, and what the planning commission looks at as well, and what has gone on. And so so to me, if it seems to me there's a couple things that I'd like to address Mr. DeVay's concern to, this compromise solution in place. Sounds like you don't want any rental going on. You can make that rule if you want. A long-term seems to be a compromise, maybe it is. And if it is, then it's up to the people that buy the property to actually take a hold and look at what are the rules that are governing that area. And if they overlook, and we've had that happen too, where people have overlooked on Carno Verde, for example. They bought it with the intent to put an STR in, and then found out after they bought it and signed a deal that they couldn't. So then what are they going to do? Are you going to buy it and build on it? They're going to sell it. So I really think in the easement thing, I'm glad we found out what the rules are on that. And you do have to have the ability to do that. So also I want to know, since the landowner didn't reach out, did you reach out to these people?
Yes, sir.
And talk to them at length about it?
I asked to have a meal and maybe do some compromising, and was told they were not interested.
And so it looks to me, if we really, the concerns are, if we know this guy is that bad, is gonna behave, then 1 year, you have that opportunity to document what has gone wrong here. And maybe we don't like the purple law. I mean, that purple paint thing. It doesn't seem to be a very good way of doing it either, but maybe there's other ways to do it. I don't know, but it just is very hard. Like you say, we're caught between a rock and a hard spot, and we sure can't deny a person that the right to use his land by the rules and regulations. So that's sort of the comment.
Okay. Anything else, sir? Go ahead.
Mary Young, I just wanted to make a quick clarification from the planning perspective, the commission. Most of the reasons for recommending non-approval were regarding not just the adjoining landowners' comment, feelings, but also the road itself And we actually refer to a different area. It says the STR does not cause significant impacts beyond the property's boundary. And that's where we were coming from with the road.
Thanks for the clarification.
Rich, were you wanting to speak to, or were you
Oh, no.
just getting my attention?
I was just like.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, so I do have a motion on the floor. Or no, we don't, we did. Sorry. We don't have a motion. I
No,
would
we
entertain a
our
motion.
steps. I'll make a motion that we approve this, short-term rental, for, Dr. Yerba's Danto short-term rental, the special use permit for that, so.
I'll say.
Okay, so I do have a motion on the floor to approve. Further discussion here at the table. And I believe we went through our public comment before we had the motion on the floor.
Give him one last shot.
Is there any additional comments? Go ahead, since I didn't do it in the proper order.
Okay, well, one comment is that we feel that even though we don't have an HOA, we can still do legal
Yes.
stuff, so I just want to clarify that. And then also, we do have a list of stipulations we'd like to have if this thing does get approved. And so the first one is the property boundaries marked as per the zoning resolution, section 9.10.3B.4, prior to approval of the permit. You know, the issuance of the permit. Also, we'd like an assessment of $2,000 per year for maintenance of Highlands Road. Also, we want to say that Highlands Road is for ingress and egress only. No other use is permitted. Another one is maximum of 2 vehicles per stay. And the last one is a liability waiver for each rental for each vehicle. And then unless Custer County wants to assume the liability, then we don't need the waiver. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Well, let me comment on that just as the commissioner here, a commissioner. I don't think, we can approve it with stipulations. That's what we do. And those stipulations are usually defined by the Planning and Zoning Commission. If you're gonna assess $2,000, you're gonna assess it to everybody. All landowners should pay the same thing. And if that's the case, you know, just like you said, whether you call an HOA or not, you have that ability to act as a group that has bylaws to do that. That's what these other ones have done that aren't formally.
We feel that the other landowners are not commercial.
That's that's irrelevant. Bottom line is you have to do that, in my view. We can't sit here and say, okay, you're only gonna charge the STR guy. That's not a stipulation.
Well, I'm the one that does the maintenance.
But then you should be assessing everybody, Roger. To do it, you don't have to do it. You can do it in the goodness of your heart, shoot all day long, and appreciate that. But, so I agree, we approve it with stipulations, and one of those that's clear to me is the boundary issue. That's very clear. It's also very clear if they don't do the other things that are asked for within the regulations. I'm not just sticking to their implied things to treat it like you would at your own property. That's the welcome package, I think, that Dorothy has for the STRs includes how to be a good neighbor, those kinds of things. And those are the kind of complaints that if they are raised in that 1 year period of time, that we do to take into account everybody's input. If they are not being a good neighbor, not acting as a residential property, that's the intent here. Even though it's a way, of course it is a business, but by the state rules, and we're just following those as well. So that's why I would definitely, my vote would vote with stipulations that we need to be defined. And those that would be further would be to be the good neighbor, and that would look at that property manager in the back there as the guy that has to be that good neighbors for that property. And if it's not, get the complaint, because we can stop it midstream. We can close an STR in mid-year, and we don't have to wait. So I like what you're proposing, and I like that you've done the research, and I don't even, Marcy, you even said it again. Egress, ingress only is not, you know, that's up to something more than just HOAs and STR issues here. It's the actual easement, and I guess we would let it defer to Dan here on the boundary thing on how to interpret that, but you can certainly walk your dog back down the street, I would think, and egress in and out, and we'll have a picnic on foot, whatever you want to call it. But anyway, and this compromise solution in place, it implies to me that you will go the compromise. You don't even want to do that because the long term isn't in the cards either with you all, sounds like.
No.
Well, that's what it implied. All right, that's all.
All right.
Comments.
And given that list, I was thinking about making sure we had a stipulation in there to make sure that the boundaries were well marked. The paint works in the short term, Paul, but I think I would like to see, and I will ask for an amendment to the motion to clearly mark the boundaries of the property. You can use purple paint, but I'd like to see some fence posts driven at intervals to where you can look down there and see a couple of posts down the line, you know which way that line's running.
I'll see if I can get that done. Some of that's pretty rugged terrain.
Yeah, and I understand that, so, and that's gonna be within reason. I think the main issue is, to the south.
Mhm.
And the road is a good boundary on that side. So the ones that are in question, I would definitely like to see some sort of permanent markings.
Northeast side has posts driven by Mr. Anderson, and he's shared with me their locations, and then I pass that on.
Okay.
But I will take care of that southern boundary.
And you can use purple paint on the post if you want.
Okay. And I'll hit the trees as well, because there's certain places where I'm not gonna be able to, on the property line, it's basically a cliff.
Okay.
So,
In essence, we'd be leaving this up to Dorothy to review and, you know, make sure that she's comfortable that they've been quote unquote
Right,
clearly marked.
That's what I was gonna say.
Sorry.
Let me tag on here because purple paint doesn't work in the snow. And in the ground, so there has to be a way electronically, maybe you get.
what about reflectors?
Reflectors would work.
Okay, that's easy to do.
I think we could say something like place markers that clearly define property lines, line of sight from marker to marker, and areas that are not clearly defined by the layout of the land, such as a road.
And for any time of the year.
Would you be willing to?
I'll amend my motion to include, clearly delineating the property lines.
Would you
I would.
second that as well?
Yeah.
Any further discussion here then?
That's it.
Mr. Gilbert?
One last little quick comment, just a reaction to this discussion and the boundary markers. I just remind the residents that boundary markers to avoid trespassing works both ways. So in a sense, you're worried about the rental people trespassing. Perhaps the owner of the rental property may be worried about you trespassing. So just keep that kind of stuff in mind.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I have a motion on the floor to approve the Wistondo application for short-term rental with the stipulation that the boundary are clearly delineated. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
With stipulations and the fact that good neighbors are there, I vote yes.
I'll vote yes as well.
Aye here. So that motion carries. And as far as the road maintenance is concerned, Roger, we spoke to that some the last time around, and that's something I think where you guys need to get together and talk and work something out. And what we did here today does not change your view, I know, on your ordinances or your covenants. But that is not something that we address, so that would be up to you guys to address.
What about the other stipulations that I mentioned?
We did not include those in the motion.
That's up to your covenants. Get it in there, and I'll tell you, you look real hard at the next 6 months, it's gonna be the summer coming on, will be the test. And you can certainly bring it in here to, if you've got a new set of covenants that you're trying to do as well, and make sure those are there. And you all voted on it, and you're charging everybody equally, whatever it is. We take a hard look at that. To Dorothy. And deny it and close it.
Okay, I know we're getting long, one more, go ahead, Paul.
I was gonna say, as far as when you said that you have, removed a permit, I was party to helping you remove that permit earlier in the year,
That's right.
so.
Took a long time on that one. I'm gonna call a quick break. We'll reconvene here in about 5 minutes. Sarah, I apologize. I told you we'd get to you a little earlier than what we are, but
That's it.
We could, leave it out. We could leave that. You know, bring out that view, so I can usually put it out at the beginning. What's that? The sexual assault. Hopefully the next one. Yeah.
Okay, the time is now 10:24 a.m. I will reconvene this meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. Our next item of business on the agenda is the consideration of resolution 24-06, use of firearms in county facilities. And thank you for working on this and getting this to us first. And I don't believe we had copies here. Would you care for me to read this? I will read it out loud here so that those in the audience know what's exactly what's on there. Custer County Resolution number 24-06. The resolution of Custer County, Colorado concerning the use of Custer County owned or operated buildings and spaces. Whereas the Board of County Commissioners of Custer County, the BOCC, has the authority pursuant to CRS 18-9-117, 18-12-214, 29-7-101, Ren 2, and 30-11-107, Ren, is that 1 or L?
1A.
1A, yeah.
1A, among other statutes, to adopt rules and regulations for the regulation and control of county facilities. And whereas the BOCC wishes to balance the needs of the public and the county staff with the rights of individuals under the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution. And whereas certain portions of county operations are sensitive and emotionally charged and may require restrictions on possession of dangerous weapons in such facilities. Now, therefore, let it be resolved by the Board of County Commissioners for the Custer County, Colorado, that for the purposes of this resolution, county facility means every building, arena, structure, and other area that is part of or located upon lands owned, leased, or operated by Custer County. For buildings or structures for which responsibility for portions of such building or structure is divided among elected officials or department heads. A county facility may include just the portion designated for responsibility by such elected official or department head. Firearm has the same meaning set forth in CRS 12-26-101 and specifically includes BB guns, pellet guns, paintball guns, and air guns. Law enforcement officers means the sheriff, undersheriff, and his or her deputies. The rules and regulations adopted here shall not be interpreted to authorize anything that is prohibited by state firearm statutes, nor shall they be interpreted to prohibit anything that state firearm statutes expressly authorize. It shall be unlawful for any person to violate any provision of these rules and regulations. Law enforcement officers are authorized and directed to remove from the premises any individual violating these rules and regulations. Any violation of these rules and regulations shall constitute a Class 1 petty offense, and upon conviction thereof shall be punished by a fine of $50 for each separate violation. In the event of an individual is convicted of subsequent offenses under this resolution and these rules and regulations, the fine shall increase $100 for each subsequent violation, up to a maximum of $300. All fines and forfeitures for this violation of this resolution and these rules and regulations, and all monies collected by the court for violation thereof shall be paid to the Custer County Treasurer's Office. It shall be unlawful unless otherwise approved in writing by the applicable elected official or department head for any person to discharge any firearm unless expressly permitted by law. Example, self-defense under CRS 18-1-704 in any county facility. Openly carry any firearm in any county facility or designated portion of such county facility where signs prohibiting firearms have been posted in compliance with CRS 29-11.7-104. Either permanently or temporarily. as may be needed from time to time at the discretion of the department head or elected official in charge of such county facility. The Board of County Commissioners may, by a simple motion and vote, choose to post such signs for any reason, for any common areas of a county facility. Law enforcement officers shall be exempt from the operation of this resolution. Approved and adopted this third day of April 2024 at West Cliff, Colorado. So that is the document we have before us. Discussion here at the table.
Well, do we want to make a motion first, so we have the.
Why don't we do that?
discussion
I
in
have it in the
proper
right order. I would entertain a motion. I would move that we approve Custer County Resolution number 24-06.
I will second for the sake of discussion.
Okay. Now discussion at the table.
Okay, I have a couple questions to lead off with. Who wrote this? Dan, did you do this?
I did this. This was based on at the request, I think, of the board, following an employee meeting, all hands meeting a couple of weeks ago, where this was raised. I based most of this language came from a policy in Douglas County. After I kind of did some asking around of other counties, what kind of policies they have.
Yeah, I was gonna ask what it's modeled after.
It's modeled after a larger policy regarding facilities use in Douglas County.
Well, what I recollect out of that meeting was we agreed to have a discussion on what to do about it and possibly put a sign up in front of the door. It was specifically raised by Human Services as an issue because in this it says emotionally charged areas of the county, and I'm assuming that was one that you had in mind.
Yeah, I think
Because
that's
of
fair to say, yes.
what business they conduct.
But I mean, for instance, people walking into the sheriff's office with a gun necessarily either. I don't know if that's what.
Sure, but it seems to me we have laws already in place that allow us to handle that already. I mean, you can put a sign up as a landowner anywhere to firearms or a business or a county building anywhere. We can do that without coming up with a resolution. We can enforce what's there. And so what I did a little homework when we were looking toward having a discussion on what we would do and how we would handle that. Irrespective of this right now, because we never talked about fines and holding people up for this. We were going to give them a chance to politely ask them, you've got a gun strapped to you and you're going to go into the Human Services. That's not allowed because the sign says no weapons. I would make it no weapons, not firearms, because a long big knife is just as emotionally charged to me as somebody getting mad and grabbing a knife and slitting your throat as it is pulling a gun. So I would say that that was some of the discussion I'd like to get. And then the intent was to come out of that and say, well, let's get our buildings guy to build a sign for us. So in some of the research I did, I talked to Sheriff Smith. I talked to Fremont County commissioners down there, and to figure out what other county buildings have been doing and what the sheriff has in mind here. And and that's as part of my comments here, I want to bring the sheriff into this discussion with me here in a minute. Turns out Fremont County has no signs, no rules that says you can't carry openly or concealed in all county buildings. They openly allow. They do not ban or restrict any of that. Only building that is restricted is the county court build facilities, which we understand under the state laws have done that, and we do that here. We don't allow anybody to walk into our courtroom either. Additionally, I found that that from even school points of view, when you do make gun-free zones, what's it do? It's a soft target that we've designated. And that's where people, if they are emotionally charged in some way, look for a way to make a bigger splash. Because if they were, people did have the firearms, and churches have found this out too. then they only get one shot instead of many people getting killed because everybody else is after them, or they're closer to law enforcement. So Aguilar is an example. The principal and the superintendent openly carry in the hallways with the kids. That's a fact. We see the soft targets, and we see states also doing the same thing in other facilities. Sheriff Smith mentioned federal law. What was that? Open carry somewhere, Rich?
In the post office?
Yeah, the post office. The government is seeing that too. They say, we're not banning you from walking in the post office any longer on a federal facility to have your gun with you. Because it was hard to enforce, I guess, anyway. And what do you do when they do it? So some of the things that I liked when I researched this with Rich, what have we done to protect our human services? Because that matters to me. And it turns out he spent a lot of his own money, and some of that I think we need to help him with. Rich, would you explain what's been going on with your own budget and what we need? Yeah, go ahead. You can just speak loud.
Yeah, so, I agree that human services is one of the places that needs extra protection in the building. The current existing security we have over there, we have an armed court room bailiff that's paid by a state grant, which by the way expires, and I'll be going to Commissioner Bay to get a renewal of that. We have a metal detector for the court clerk and the courtroom, and they fall under a court order by the district judge of the 11th Judicial District, Salida, who is prohibited carrying weapons in the courtroom and the court clerk's office. We have a proposal for a new security and fire alarm, which we paid off of this year's state grant. And then we have room in next year's state grant to add some other hardening features that you're interested in. This morning, I sent the commissioners and the clerk an email from McCaslin Glass in Canyon City, which does the bulletproof glass for Department of Corrections. And so they are willing to come up to our office, and I'm pulling up the bid, which I sent you in small print. I can't read it at the minute, but it was under $3,000. So they have a 6 foot by 3 foot window there. And so McCaslin will come up and put in bulletproof glass, the same spec that they use at Department of Corrections, and install that, which we an ask that you can ask for. In addition to that, there's a company that sells, I don't want to call it bulletproof plywood, but it's 4 by 8 sheets of a bulletproof material, and those are $1,200 a piece. And so in looking at the thing, I would recommend we just do that whole front wall at DHS, and we have to have a local person install those panels. Some other things that we've put in place at the sheriff's office expense is we put in door locks so that each individual work area in the county office building can be locked. And then in an emergency, and we had a vendor up here and practiced with the fire department how we can overcome those if perhaps the suspect was behind one of those doors. We've created 2 safe rooms, and then we've issued 2 police radios to planning and zoning and DHS, so they can call for help from within their office and goes right on the main channel, or when they're traveling out to a remote site, they can be in police contact. And a planning and zoning, I'm sorry, so I think DHS is has a higher level of risk than other places, and planning and zoning also attracts people who are angry. And then in both cases, DHS and planning and zoning, they've called us in the past with some advance notice and said, hey, we're going to do a home visit on a certain day, and we think we need extra security, so we send a deputy member or posse with them. And the court decision that Commissioner Kanda referenced happened on January 19th of this year. It's a court case called U.S. versus Ayala, Ayala. And in the past, they have used federal code 18 U.S. code 930 to blanket restrict firearms at federal facilities. And then the post office had a thing in CFR 232.1 that restricted firearms in post office buildings. So they apparently went to court, and the judge said it was he quashed an arrest and a charge that had been made from that. And even after that happened on January 19th, the post office sent out a circular to their people saying that they're still claiming that they can ban firearms in the post office. So I'm in a tough spot where there's a court decision that says I can't enforce it, and then I have a postal service regulation that says we're supposed to. So I would respectfully ask that when you pass an ordinance, we make it as simple as possible so that everyone can understand. I did respectfully have 3 questions about the county ordinance. In there, up at the top, you define law enforcement officer, and it says deputy, sheriff, or undersheriff. And I would respectfully ask you add a bailiff and posse members to that, and I don't think they actually fit the definition you have on there. And the gentleman who's serving as the bailiff is not a post certified deputy, and then the posse members are not. Second, will county employees be allowed to carry in the building in the vehicles? And yeah, so we put up a sign, you know, like we have signs, speed limit signs and stop signs. There's people in our community who obey all those signs, but then there's also people in our community who will intentionally not obey those signs for whatever reason. So I just, if we put a sign that says no guns allowed, then the honest people will start obeying it, but then your potential troublemaker may not. And then are you going to take the guns away from the county employees? Because I understand that county employees are now authorized to carry concealed weapons, and many of them do. And then the last suggestion is I am a little nervous, and I also serve on the board of the gun range, and we have some firearm safety rules posted there. And I'm actually the safety officer, and I believe in gun safety and training. But we actually put on the sign, if you see somebody who's acting reckless or they're shooting guns or those that happen, don't confront them, call law enforcement. And so I don't want to put the county employee in a position where there's a hostile person potentially with a gun, and then you're gonna say, get out of the building and perhaps further charge this situation. So I think the best thing would be to call us to come and do the confrontation. But I would be willing to partner with the county on a de-escalation training. And so that's something that we've hit hard at the sheriff's office, kind of how to calm people down. In fact, we have a joint training coming up with EMS because they're also on some of these emotionally charged calls that we're on. So that's all I had to answer. Yes, sir. Oh, so the panic button system is outdated and we're maxed out. And so we've installed a number of panic buttons around the building. And the system is pretty neat, and it's uncommon that when you push that button, it actually keys a box in your office, and then it transmits a voice over our main channel, says panic button in the Board of Commissioners room, which is very simple to understand in a heated crisis. We can't get those anymore. And then we've had requests from county employees to add more of those panic buttons around, and the box is maxed out. So part of this new bid that I received from a company in Colorado Springs, they would replace the panic buttons, and we'd have the option to have more of those in there. But their system would go to an alarm company to say panic button, and they have to call our own 911. And the one hang up on that is there's a committee of county employees on courthouse security. And they asked, or we brought up a mutually beneficial thing. If we're gonna put an alarm in the building, we might as well make it a fire alarm too, because we've got valuable records there. And it'd be nice to get a fire permit there when it starts. However, there are some fire codes that have changed in the recent past, and you basically need to have a whole building brought up to fire code, which we would not be able to do. So the alarm company said they would be willing to use the old, to let us do it the old way if the sheriff and the fire chief would kind of sign a waiver saying that we're gonna allow it because we're planning on replacing the building at a future time.
Yeah, because all we'll have is detection and warning. We won't have suppression.
Right. And it's supposed, that's one of the new things for the fire code.
Yeah. Okay, let me finish what we started then. Okay, so that's a good point. You also mentioned to me locks on the doors that are now being installed at your expense. They're operated by your foot, or they're at the base of the door.
Yes, sir.
Explain that anyway. You're making safe rooms within.
Okay, so the company name is called Ground Force, and they're based in Texas. And I've actually met the inventor of the system, came out here and installed them in the school as well, and so it's a matching project, but in a situation where you have a door, we want the employees on the inside to be able to lock it, and so there's this aluminum peg that sort of looks like a trailer hitch ball. And you drop it into a hole which our vendor drilled in the floor, and there's a dust cap on there to keep rocks from coming in, but the employee, if they feel things are heated, can drop that in and it will protect the door from being kicked inward or yanked outward, and several of the doors are outer doors and inner doors. And then in 2 locations, we made a safe room because the customers are already kind of in the area where it's going, so the employees could retreat to an area.
Where this is in human services or,
Human services and the county clerk's office.
okay. And then we got to talk about unintended consequences. The way this is written, it's every facility. That includes fairgrounds, that includes the airport, it includes all the buildings. And it is at the discretion of department heads and elected officials. I don't see how we can leave that kind of language in here to actually.
It makes it easy on the citizen if you don't have a lot of complicated rules, you know, kind of like all or nothing, I think is easier for people to understand.
And the unintended consequence at the airport, somebody's gonna be landing there, and I have a concealed carry permit, and I also open carry and do those kinds of things. How do you enforce that, and what would you do? You're not gonna fine them $50 just because they landed with a gun. So that's why I think it's I would not support this particular resolution the way it's written. I would rather see us not pass this and actually have a discussion on what we currently have in work. I would like to go buy the stuff he's talking about in the temporary meantime of getting the bulletproof glass in, the plywood, those kinds of things in the areas that are hottest. And then the ultimate solution might be that we move them into another building by themselves with a single entrance and with a metal detector that you might be able to man, but that has to be manned, and the cost of a deputy to stand there all day long to let people in and out of human services has to be paid for, and so does the machine. What another temporary thing might be available to us is to be able to use the current deputy that's not qualified yet, but
he's qualified, he's just not listed.
that's not listed, that's right.
Right.
And so use him, and so if there's an issue right now, today, starting today, human services could say, sir, you call the deputy over and well, maybe it's a button, maybe he gets a hot button on his radio now. Come up, get that person and run them through the metal detector. Today, we can do that by making them walk down there and come back around until we get a better solution or think through some of the issues that we would have because I truly do want to uphold the Constitution of the United States, and the Second Amendment is one of the most ones that is one of the reasons we're as free as we are in this country, in my view. That's my personal view. So I would not support this the way it's written today. And is there anything else that you had, Rich?
No, but the court security bailiff, his name's Mel.
Yeah.
His salary is paid solely by a state courthouse security grant. So then it puts me in a tough spot because there's more than just a court in that building. And so I was able to articulate in the grant that makes sense for the alarm system for the whole building.
Right.
Obviously benefits the courtroom, but that grant I could not use to hire a second.
Right, we would have to make room in our budget. And I think even today, we would, even as part of this discussion, we could pass today, just vote on buying the glass and doing these temporary measures.
Yeah, I don't think the glass or the Kevlar sheets or whatever they're made out of, that's a capital improvement out of county budget, out of the 50 fund, not out of the sheriff.
That's right, that's my point, we can help the sheriff recommend whatever he's recommending, he's gonna come to us anyway.
But that's gonna take a few weeks to order, a few weeks to get a contractor lined up, right? So what is our immediate, what can we do immediately to protect DHS to provide them what they need based upon the sheriff's recommendations and we probably have to be careful with Mel as well, because that grant is for the courts, not for DHS. So we, that's grant money that we just need to be very careful that we don't blur the lines there. So, what does that look like? What do we need to do there? If it's call over an officer or, I suppose Mike or Ann could.
Absolutely, and I would come too, and so we do have a police radio in DHS right now. And so if somebody, for the people who haven't been in there, you walk in an open door. And then there's like a little vestibule that has glass, but it's not bulletproof. And then you can conduct your business there, and then I'm not sure who, but sometimes they let customers all the way into the facility and sit at a desk and talk to an employee. But as of today, call for help on the radio or 911 and I'll come and whoever else will come. But I just can't say, oh, we know there's gonna be a hostile customer, so I'm gonna pull Mel out of the courtroom and stick him over there. I have to do it from one of the deputies.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think just a couple of things. In terms of the department, the way that's set up, I think one of the concerns that I've heard is that there is that vestibule where people will come in and, basically turn in a form or whatever, but the reality is the vast majority of people that they deal with who are more likely to be upset, they're going to be meeting within that office. So they're already going to be in that secure area. So I'm not sure how much, I understand that someone just walking in who's already upset, the bulletproof glass and so on would prevent them from getting beyond that area, or at least slow them down.
Before you move off that thought and give you, because today what they would do is ask that person to remove all their weapons. Right?
That's what the precipitating.
Before
That's where I was
open
getting
the
at.
door, right?
That's where I was getting at though, is that's the precipitating problem that I think led to this as being an immediate discussion, is that we had a situation in the department a few weeks ago where the case supervisor was meeting with a parent who was upset, and who was openly carrying a firearm, and law enforcement was called over. Well, first of all, I will say that I believe, and I may have the facts wrong here, I believe someone from the department asked the person to go place the firearm back in their vehicle, and the person specifically said, "I don't have to do that. The Board of County Commissioners has said I don't have to do that." So because there's no rule that says you can't. So that's number one. And then I think law enforcement was called over, and I believe the sheriff's office, the sheriff's deputy that responded said, "We don't have a rule here that we can enforce." So before we can talk about, we can stop someone at the door, say, go put your firearms in your vehicle, whatever. We got to have a rule that says that. So that's what and I'm not saying that any of these concerns that have been raised by the sheriff or Commissioner Kanda are not legitimate. First of all, it's not my job to say that, but the point is, I think we need some kind of policy that the board votes on and adopts before sheriff can enforce the policy that doesn't exist. And whether that policy is this policy or whether that policy is just you all voting today or wherever, we're going to put a sign outside the building saying, no open carry of firearms in this building, whatever you choose to do, before we can enforce the policy, there's got to be a policy.
I agree, and that's where I was headed next, Dan, I'm sorry, and that was what I was going to bring up, because I discussed that with the sheriff as well. And in fact, he can arrest them for disturbance, he can arrest them for trespass if they didn't do it. There's a lot of ways he can handle that. If that person gets unruly and our policies, and which is what Fremont County did, that HS Human Services group has that sign on the door, no weapons. That would be the first thing we ought to vote to do, is let's do that today. There's no reason we can't put a sign up there that says no weapons in the sensitive area here. And that's enforceable. He can react, the deputies can come in and remove him. if he is not gonna concede that he's gonna unload his weapons before he walks in to do business. That's straightforward. And then he can return and get his weapon back later. We'd have to work out the process where he would store it, where he's gonna collect it. Does he turn it over to the deputy? Do he call the sheriff up and they take it to the sheriff's office? Those kinds of things. That's why I said we needed some time to work out before voting on a policy or a process. We need to work with what the details are. But in the meantime, let's do the right thing to protect them as much as we can under the circumstances we have right now. As well as deciding whether we're gonna use capital money. We could do some today maybe, or wait, do it later.
What do we need to do, Dan, today? To make it so that at DHS's door, before anybody goes through that door, not into the vestibule, but past that door, if they need to allow client, citizen, whatever, to go through a case, what do we need to do to make it so for them to go past that door, this is what you have to do, and these are gonna be the requirements of disarming yourselves from weapons to then proceed through that door.
I think you could just vote to post a sign that says, no weapons beyond this point.
Okay.
I think that would be fully within your power. And I think that falls within the agenda item that's on the agenda, so we have notice to the public that this is.
Because I have issues as well, and I put this up so that we could have this discussion. I would not want to inhibit, employees was brought up, inhibit anyone from being able to carry. I agree with, the military makes their military bases a soft target, because they wouldn't allow them to carry weapons on the military base. We'll give them to you when you have to fight, I guess, but I fully understand the issues that are in there because of the clientele that you guys deal with. But I do not want to take away that right for people to be able to carry and to make it a blanket statement for all of our facilities, I don't believe is where I would like to go. I think I could fully support making that office off limits and posting that. But
If I could make a comment.
you may.
So let's say that we're focused solely on the DHS office.
Mhm.
I'm pretty confident that I could rent a metal detector that I could put inside that outer door before we get to the vestibule. And then we could work on purchasing one, but if you wanted to get something in place right away, I think I could find a vendor to do it. They do it for special instances.
Yeah, at least look into it and let us know the cost.
Yeah.
If I need to start moving money around or find the money for it.
But then if we put that in place, we would also have to have someone to man
That's the
that
problem.
detector, correct?
That would be ideal, which is hard to get staffing here. But let's say a person walks in to the office and the thing beeps, and in fact, our metal detector is actually colored lights on the secure side. It shows you where the metal object is, like around the hip or something. And so then if the thing beeps, then maybe the DHS person could say, hey, we're a no weapons thing or something, or you need to empty your stuff before, but not let them into security until whatever that is resolved.
But then that person would have to come out around behind them. Bulletproof glass to go look.
Well, I
So-
think that maybe they could look through the glass, so they'd hear the thing go off and they'd see the red
That's
light.
what I mean, yeah. But then and then they'd have to see him empty his pot, have it where, we'd have to work out the details of how you would do it. That's
Either
something
they
that we
want a
can do.
fast solution.
Meantime, you could still have a button and have the deputy that's over there now walk up and have the guy escort him down there and have him go through it. Or ask him to show me, or if it's visible, open carry like that was, hand me your pistol and I'll give it back to you later.
Maybe I could have if they know it's a client that they suspect would have a problem or that they're gonna bring in security, maybe send them to the
Now you're,
deputy,
now you're
run them
talking.
through the metal detector and then have
There's
metal
a policy
escorted
there.
back
That's a
into the.
perfect answer.
But I just don't like the county employee.
You don't want them in,
Getting
that's right, they
somebody
should,
who's already-
they should not do this.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Something like that might work. So, and if posting that is not a good long-term solution, I think maybe what I'm hearing in the conversation today is this might be something we need to have a workshop with to get something decided before we bring something back to here. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
As long as we work a near-term fix like we've been talking after we're done with this right now, but I think we do need to discuss a bigger picture. Like moving to another building, maybe whatever that means, so, as an example.
There actually is a court security workshop scheduled and the chief judge is sending his person down here. And I will get that date to the commissioners.
Okay.
You guys attended the last one.
Is that Tuesday, the 23rd?
Yeah, that was a good meeting too.
I think it's Tuesday, the 23rd of April, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, that's it at 10:30.
Yes.
So from just my perspective to finish up, then is I would like to see a near-term solution, process like we discussed it. Sign process like Rich just talked about, if you get policy in the HS people that got a concerned person coming in, he goes immediately with the deputy to get checked in, that kind of thing.
So what I would suggest is maybe somebody moves to table a resolution. And then we have another motion to post a sign. That no weapons are allowed in secure area of DHS.
Or we vote it down and start over.
Or you could do that, I
That's
guess, yeah.
probably make it clean.
Yeah, that's true.
If we voted it down, we'd need to hold a public comment first, and if we voted to table it, we could move on to the other resolution or the other vote.
It's been seconded, so public comment comes after your discussion.
Well, if there's a motion to table, that's not debatable, so it would be.
Making up rules as we go.
The Robert has made up these rules of procedure long before any of us were in this room.
And because of that, because there is a lot to be said on this, I will allow the public comment and we'll go ahead and move forward with this vote. Unless you guys gentlemen choose otherwise.
No, let's go through the process.
Okay.
And like we normally do, and then we're at least consistent.
Anything else here at the table then?
No.
No.
Okay, public comment. Go ahead.
John Van Dorn, so. Little background, I'm a gun owner, spent 3.5 years in the military and was trained and qualified on a multitude of lethal weapons. And with all of that, I would never want to be the good guy with a gun in this room trying to stave off something happening. I think this is a very soft target. I've seen very angry people walk into this room. And there's two things. The only person I'd like to see in this room with firearm is the sheriff or one of his deputies or possible. Easy to take people out. You know, all I gotta do is walk outside through that window and I can take all of you out, even if you're packing, before you even have a chance to think about the thing. So this is a top target. I think it's one of the most important targets. The other thing that concerns me is people walking in here open carry. Because there's two things you can do with a gun. You can pull it and shoot it, or you can just have it hanging on your side as an object of intimidation. So if I get 4 or 5 guys in here open carrying and they're extremely angry and they have an issue that they want to express their anger about, it kind of puts a dampening
dampening effect on any public discussion. Because they're really openly intimidating anybody else speaking, because they have a weapon, and anybody that doesn't have a weapon is sitting here wondering, well, are they so angry they're gonna pull a draw and do something crazy? So that's another element I think needs to be considered. I think especially for this venue, this room, you get a lot of venom directed at you, all three of you, from time to time. Sometimes one at a time, sometimes three at a time. So I think this room especially needs to be considered in addition to human services. So, and just simple question, how many of you are acting right now?
I got a knife.
There you go.
I do.
Well, I know you've got that knife all the time because you sliced a donut for me.
That's right. That's about as vicious as I get.
And I'm afraid where that knife had been before you did.
You better be sure that it has been.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. James, go ahead.
Yeah, James Gilbert. Once again, the discussion around here is really focused on protecting the Second Amendment as written versus protecting the citizens of Custer County. If you think about it, what reason does anyone at all, except perhaps the bailiff, to have a weapon in the county courthouse, in this room? For what reason? There's only one, or no, there's two, because John brought up the other one. Intimidation or malfeasance. There's no reason to carry one around for no reason. You just leave it where it belongs. Now, because I have the right to is not a sufficient reason. It puts the people of Custer County in danger. You've already passed a resolution whereby you're not going to enforce a law that the state enacted to protect people from people with weapons that are a threat to them. And I would argue there are 3 people dead because of that action. So now you're not going to put signs on the county courthouse door and this door or whatnot that says no weapons allowed. If that sign's there, virtually everybody is not going to bring one in. If you're saying, oh, just the bad guy is, well, then do something to protect us from the bad guy. Not force us behind plexiglass into a bunker because you want to keep people with the right around here to just walk around intermittently doing whatever they want. Yes, there is a right to keep and bear arms, but like every right we have, they can be modified such that the public is protected. Now, with respect to guns in here, I'm not going to be intimidated with what I say. What I may be is shocked because my opinions are not particularly popular. And the last thing is you guys must have been asleep because at the last meeting, the 3 of you and Kelly Camper were threatened with violence by a public speaker. Did you not hear that? The only thing he didn't do was implicate himself because he used the word they. They are coming for you. It's gonna be bloody. That was around elections. So Kelly is in jeopardy. The judges are all in jeopardy. You've got a whole place that you have to protect the citizens of Custer County. And this was a pretty simple way to do it, but now you gotta get plexiglass. I'm probably done because people are like looking at me like my time's up.
They got a minute and a half.
Oh, but I mean, you've got a whole bunch of people that need protecting, and it's very simple to simply say, good citizens of Custer County, good and bad gun owners of Custer County, just please leave your weapons and do your mayhem somewhere else. For now, the government buildings are simply safe places, not soft targets, safe places. And until you start thinking of making places safe as opposed to making them into jails or bunkers for the public, let's start doing stuff where you make people safe or safer at the very least. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for that.
Jim Chaplin. Well, it concerns me because a lot of that, you do that makes for a soft target. I went through cancer treatment stuff there and I went into the radiologist and stuff, big sign here, no guns allowed and everything. Always made me nervous because I thought, you know, that is a really good place. You've got a patient that doesn't like his treatment and everything and he's dying. What's he got to lose? So he comes in and starts shooting everybody. I mean, it makes a soft place. That same thing here. You ban all this and you've got soft targets and stuff. So a bad guy that may not go in if he doesn't think there might be somebody else with a gun. You know, if he knows there's nobody with a gun, then makes for a whole different situation.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else here? Okay.
My name is Alexis Enslow and I'm the supervisor for child welfare and adult protection services at DHS for Custer County. That situation happened with me. And I don't know if you guys have ever been on the business end of a gun, but it's not pleasant. And in my life and in my career as child welfare, it's happened to me 3 times. If you guys expect us to wait until somebody is unruly and then go get the bailiff, I'm already dead. That's like asking somebody to put on a seatbelt right before they crash, saying stop the crash, put your seatbelt on, and increase your chances of living. So if you're asking me to identify somebody who's unruly after they're unruly, I'm already dead. And my kids, thank you. I've been sitting here during this conversation and my heart rate started at 65. It's now over 115. Because my life matters. Kelly's life matters. Everybody's life over there does matter. And something that you guys could do very simply is put up signs today. That could be done today. That's step 1. But when this conversation came up in the all hands meeting, it wasn't just DHS. It's DHS. It's Kelly's office with the DMV. It's planning and zoning. They're right across the hall or right around the hall. And this conversation that was before this resolution got heated. And Sheriff Smith, I'm sure you could provide the date of those 3 murders over an easement. It's not just DHS. It's your county employees that want to come to work and be safe. I'm just the spearhead because I'm the one that's had it happen to me. And that door lock that's over there, I can't even tell you how many people have that code that don't work there. I can't tell you how many times I look up from my desk and I see people in that area that got in there with that code and they don't work there. I asked about that code. Nobody seems to know how to change that code. That's a problem. My job is to engage families, kids, parents, grandkids, cousins, aunts, uncles, twice removed. I don't care how many of them there are. My job is to engage them, and I immediately undermine every one of my efforts if I go into that house with a gun on my hip that I am more than qualified to carry. Just like this gentleman here, I'm also former military. I'm also former law enforcement. I am a registered Republican with my own arsenal. And not one of those guns should be on my hip when I go out to see families. That puts me in a position of superiority because I have a gun, because it's a method to control, to gain compliance. Whether I pull it or not, it's dangerous to have. And not one DHS worker in the state of Colorado or the state of Alaska, because I was there too, carries a weapon when they go out in the field. And that's just asking to put a bigger target on us. That gun intimidates people. And my job is to engage. But you're asking me to come to work and not be safe. You're asking everybody in that building to come in there and not be safe. I'm asking you today to make us safe. I know the resolution has verbiage issues that Commissioner Kanda has raised. And that's fine, but you guys got to do something.
Thank you.
My heart rate's 122.
Anyone else? Okay, so I have a motion on the floor. To approve resolution 24-06. Use of firearms in county facilities. Actually, this title is different than that. A resolution of Custer County concerning the use of Custer County owned or operated buildings and spaces. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Sir? Are you abstaining?
I'm gonna say nay. And then I move that we put a sign on DHS's door immediately, starting today. At what point we can get a sign printed out and put on that door. So that anybody visiting Alexis or anybody else with DHS has to remove their weapons before meeting with them behind their door.
I'll second that.
I also would add to that amendment also that we figure out how to change that door code to DHS limiting the amount of people that have access to that area.
I'll second that, but I want to ask a question or replace it.
Or replace it, whatever we need to do to, so they.
And I
feel
don't
like they have-
understand, you got a lock, don't you have different locks? So that's not gonna be hard.
It shouldn't be hard to change the code on that door. We can find that out.
Well, I'll second it.
By the way, the previous motion failed by unanimous nay. I do have a motion on the floor now, to immediately post Human Services Office with signage, I'm gonna say stating no weapons allowed.
Correct.
And to get those that locked code changed, or if failing to do that, that we get the lock changed. Is that the motion?
That's a motion.
Okay, discussion here at the table.
Okay, I would support that 100%, and with the proviso that after this, I want to make a motion that we would go that next step with the capital investment money, work on both the bulletproof glass and the whatever you want to call the solid barrier.
I'll work on getting bids.
And that can be something we can do as a separate, after this motion. Don't want to adjourn.
I would guess that the sheriff, or I would assume, I guess, that the sheriff will work with Alexis on that process.
Sure.
Okay.
Is that your lock, sir?
And it's not.
Tom had got that and they put that wrong.
If they do not know how to change it in that office, we can.
Just cut it out
we
of
can
there
get
and put
a-
a new one on.
We can get a locksmith in here and they know how to do that.
That's a really old law.
I have my own locksmith coming tomorrow.
Say what?
He's on vacation today, but he'll be back tomorrow. I can send him over. Mike Dickinson.
His locksmith.
Okay. Your favorite, sir?
I was just gonna say, it's a really old lock. It should.
Probably should.
There's gotta be somewhere online where we can figure out how to, like, what combination of buttons. It's not a electronic thing. It's a, I think it's.
So at the sheriff's office, we've got electronic locks, which are also in use at the court side of the building. And you get an individual user code, but then there's also an audit trail. So they could come to the sheriff's office, we program in the names and their own personal code number, and when that person leaves, their code's deleted. And then if you can restrict it where they only have access to business hours, or if something happens.
That's what we
overnight,
want.
you can see who the last guy was that logged in.
Yeah, if we have another one of those, or we can get one order to pick it up on that.
Anything else from here at the table?
Makes us that next time.
Public comment? Seeing none. Those in favor of the motion to immediately post Human Services Office with signage stating no weapons allowed, and to move forward on fixing or replacing that lock, signify by saying
Aye.
aye. Aye. That motion does carry.
Okay, I move that we take that next step with our capital investment money and buy, support the sheriff, who has already worked the details on a bulletproof glass window, 3 by whatever it was for the DHS office, and the solid barrier. What'd you call it, Rich? Is it Kevlar coated? What is?
I didn't want to say Keller, because I think it's something else, but it's.
It probably is.
Rated bulletproof protection.
And with the cost that he put out seems reasonable enough to, and the urgency is enough to do it now. I think it was $1,000 and a couple thousand on the other.
$29.50 for the glass.
Yeah, 3,000 installed. Good deal.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
Okay, so I have a motion on the floor to move forward with replacing the glass and the wall panels. For Human Services Office. We do have a glass quote for $29.50 installed. We don't have a quote for the other, so that will not be in there.
Whatever.
So whatever that cost would be. Further discussion here at the table.
Yes, sir.
Public comment. Mr. Gilbert.
$3,000 to make yourselves feel better. This is ridiculous. You're making a bunker again. You're not protecting the citizens. You're just protecting some yahoo that's gonna walk around thinking he's Wyatt Earp and feel that he has the right to blow people away because he's mad. Why don't you deal with the issue? Keep the issue out of the space. Let's allow this woman to not fear for her well-being doing her job. I mean, this is crazy. You guys are you're just weak. You're afraid of the people of the county saying, oh my God, you're trying to modify our right to carry a cannon and to intimidate or murder people in the county. But we put this bulletproof glass up to make the people working in the Department of Human Services feel a little bit safer, and maybe their pulse will be down to 140 now. You're not dealing with the other people threatened. How about the zoning director who refuses a permit and the guy gets upset? How about the election officials who are being threatened as we speak? I mean, you're just dodging the question. Get some cojones and act appropriately, please.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Excuse me. Jim Shaplin, I think that's a very good starting move, and it does something right now while you're considering the whole situation and the best way to handle it.
Thank you.
Let me make a comment.
Anyone else?
Okay, I'll address that. I do have cojones, Jim. And the bottom line, you didn't give me.
You're At the table, just.
Hold on, hold on.
Hold up.
I'm making
right
a
here.
comment.
No, we're not going
And
there.
so in that light, the next motion that I was gonna make is that we have to have the next step after that, which we've talked about already. To understand whether there are other offices, how we proceed forward with your money, the taxpayers' money. To do the right thing for the right people at the right time. And so I would move next after this. meeting.
We're on this.
I'm not gonna move it. now.
Don't
I was
bring
gonna say,
it.
I was gonna do that after we're
Like,
done,
we're
but we
on,
need to
we're
have
on
a
the
work
motion
session.
on the floor.
Okay, that's my comment.
You got two comments? Do I get two comments?
No, sir,
Oh.
you do not. You get
So
one.
not only are you're not fair either.
Those in favor? Moving forward with the bulletproof glass for human services as well as the protective wall board. Signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries.
Okay, I would now move that we, to pick a date. I think it might coincide with Richard's security meeting. Workshop to look at that option, and then as part of that meeting, consider the bigger picture, choices like another building that DHS might be in, or other people, this building here could be included, could be anything that we look at how we make it better for the employees of the county, wherever they are.
I would ask you, sorry, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, let me see if I can restate your motion.
That was it, have the workshop, for the next step.
We have a motion on the floor to set up a workshop to look at ways to move forward from here in
Bigger solution.
in regards to safety issues in the building. Is that adequately stated?
Regarding weapons, I guess.
When do we want to plan on that workshop?
Well, I was gonna get into that in discussion. So discussion on that, because you seconded, correct?
Yes.
Did that be addressed during that tour on the 23rd?
Yes.
Or the tour followed by a workshop, just for that reason? Would you be available for
Yeah,
that
that's
as well?
what it is.
Can we do that?
Yeah, that's right. What date? 23rd?
Tuesday, April 23rd at 10 a.m.
How long is that normally take? I forget.
An hour.
Put us to 11. So immediately followed by a workshop. Would you rather have it immediately or do it at 1 o'clock or something like that?
Whatever works for
Because I think you should be involved in that. So,
Let's do it right after the court security meeting.
court security meeting at 10, followed by a workshop at 11 o'clock. Okay, any further discussion here at the table?
Some of that workshop, when you do the notice for it, probably should include an executive session, or you should include the option for an executive session, because I don't know that we want to be discussing certain security details in an open meeting.
That's a good point.
Oh.
The workshop would otherwise be open to the public.
Right, and then that's what I was just gonna say, is we've never done an executive session as part of a workshop, so should it be a special meeting?
special meeting.
Cause I have to attend. I don't attend workshops.
Oh. I don't, I mean, logistics, I'm not sure I care. I just want to make sure that we leave open the option to have an executive, part of this in an executive session.
Maybe it's a special meeting.
We can do that, yeah.
It's closed.
Just as long as it's clear that, because again, I just want to make sure we're not violating the Open Meetings Act and leave open the opportunity to have a discussion with the sheriff involved about things that maybe we don't want the public to know that we're doing or not doing. Because quite frankly, I don't want us to be talking about all the holes that we have in security or how we're plugging those holes. And the Open Meetings Act makes it very clear that you can use an executive session to discuss security details.
So, change that from workshop to a special BOCC meeting with an executive session to discuss security measures.
And that gives us the option to make decisions. Okay.
And you still want that at 11?
And you go to lunch late. We'll get you home through your gallery.
Yeah.
You want me there?
Probably would not be a bad plan, sir.
Okay, I have a meeting at 10, but I can move that meeting, so.
Okay, yeah. I think it
Yeah,
would
why
be
not?
prudent to have you there.
Okay.
Okay, so, any other discussion on the motion? At the table? Public comment? Jim?
Jim Sheflin, I agree with everything you're saying there. There's a big deal going around the county, transparency. We gotta know all this. There are certain things that we don't need to know. All we need to know is that, yes, we figured a way to fix this, and you can say, okay, we're doing this to fix it, but we do not need to know all the details. So I think you're going the right direction.
Thanks, sir.
I think in the open meeting, it was made very clear what other staff in that building want. They want to be safe too. It wasn't something that needs to be discussed in a workshop to determine who feels safe and who doesn't. And we specifically asked if you guys were gonna kick the can. And you kicked the can.
Anything else? Nothing online. Those in favor of, scheduling a special BOCC meeting at 11 o'clock on the 23rd of April to discuss security measures, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. The motion carries. If you could be there.
Yep.
Well, you will be. So, and then if we could specifically invite other people that we that need to be there as well for that discussion. Okay. Next item on our agenda is the consideration of proclamation declaring the 911 dispatchers as first responders. Trying to find it here. You brought that to us, Rich?
Yes.
Would you like to speak to it or no?
Sure. The 911 dispatchers serve our county. And one of them lives in our county and has a good knowledge of the area and the people here. And they're the first ones to hear crisis come in, the traumatic events. And one thing that is deeply traumatic for them is once the event's over, it's like they don't know the final outcome. Like they hear a call like shots fired and then the radio goes blank. And so there's a move at the state level to declaring first responders so they can qualify for post-traumatic stress counseling and whatnot, and that's the resolution that you guys have given.
All right.
So this is what the proclamation says. Recognition of Combined Regional Communications Authority Emergency Telecommunications Officers as first responders, whereas the federal government standards Occupational Classification System, SOX, classifies workers in occupational categories for statistical purposes based upon the nature of the work performed, and in some cases, based upon the skills, education, or training needed to perform the work. And whereas America's emergency telecommunications officers are currently categorized in the SOX as an office and administrative support occupation, a category which includes secretaries and office clerks. And whereas classifying emergency telecommunications officers in office and administrative support classification fails to recognize their central role in public safety and homeland security, their specialized training and skills, and their uniquely stressful work environments. And whereas classifying emergency telecommunications officers as protective service occupations alongside police, firefighters, security guards, lifeguards, and others whose job it is to protect our communities would better reflect the work they perform. And whereas Combined Regional Communications Authority emergency telecommunications officers are highly trained professionals that each year handle over 80,000 telephone calls from the public, including over 18,000 calls to 911, reporting an emergency and dispatch police, fire, and EMS to over 78,000 dispatchable events. And whereas Combined Regional Communications Authority emergency telecommunications officers are the first responders answering the emergency telephone call, providing life-saving pre-arrival instructions, telephonic CPR, triage, de-escalation, and the calm presence on the telephone and radio that is focused on both public and transponder safety. Now, therefore, let it be proclaimed that the Custer County Board of County Commissioners do hereby support the state of Colorado in their recognition of emergency telecommunications officers as first responders, and as such declare the emergency telecommunications officers of the Combined Regional Communications Authority are recognized as first responders serving our communities. Adopted this third day of April 2024.
Thank you. I don't know if my voice would have went through.
And when Rich first brought this up to me, or like maybe brought it up to all of us, I don't know. I think I responded, but just by saying they're the first people that get the call. It's not police, EMS, or fire, or the sheriff's department. It's our first responders that sit there behind those dispatch it all out. So they are the first responders. They're the first person on the phone when we call. So yeah. I'll make a motion that we consider this proclamation declaring 911 dispatchers as first responders.
I'll second.
We have a motion on the floor to approve supporting or passing the proclamation declaring 911 dispatchers as first responders. Further discussion here at the table.
No, sir, not for me.
Public comment. I'd say I've dealt with them in my years as a volunteer, and have quite a job to do. And a lot of this, when an incident, especially a major one, goes down, it's really tough for them back there. Trying to keep everything straight and the calls going where they need to be, and I admire the people that do that. I have a motion on the floor to approve the proclamation declaring 911 dispatchers as first responders. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. That motion carries. Next, we have consideration of proclamation declaring April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Karen, you brought this to me, and thank you for waiting patiently all through this meeting to come and speak to us. And I'm assuming that you would like to speak to that. And Sarah reached out to me and brought this to me. And I'll let you speak to it. You could do a better job of that than I could.
Okay, do you want me to read the proclamation or do you guys?
Read it.
If you would like to, my
you
voice
can
is starting to go
definitely-
backwards here.
Please read
You
it.
did a great job.
If you want me to read it, I'll.
Please read it.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind saying a couple things just about my organization. It's been around for a long time. We've been, Family Crisis Services has been around since 1981. We do serve all of Fremont and Custer County. I think I kind of wanted to say something. Can I stand up?
You may.
I kind of wanted to say something to you specifically. I know there's actually a lot in this room of people that are doing things where it's like, we're doing our jobs, we're working for the law, but you wind up on both sides. And I think DHS, you guys are an exception case for that. And my heart wants to say thank you for coming back to work and still caring about your job and caring about like the system we have in America that is really designed to protect citizens. And I really wanted to say that to you. I hear your heart and what you're going through to help make our country a safe and better place. And it's difficult. I imagine you're in that situation a lot, and you guys are most certainly in that position as well. And that being said, what I have to say is kind of ugly. And so I'll just kind of keep it short. Colorado has a higher than average rate of sexual assault, higher than the rest of the United States. Our sexual assault statistics in Colorado are 23.8%, and the rest of the national average is 18.3%, which is, that's a pretty intense difference. And so the work that we're doing is rough and it's ugly, but the resources that we have are amazing. And our goal is to just speak into people's lives as much as we can, even in difficult situations, even in dark situations, and lend help not just to the victims, but to the families and the support systems as well. So that being said, our request is that you guys would declare April Sexual Assault Awareness Month for Custer County and read that very wordy proclamation that we sent over.
You got it, sir.
Yeah, I got
Thank you very much.
Custer County, Colorado, proclamation declaring April 2024 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Whereas April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month and calls attention to the fact that sexual violence is widespread and impacts every person in Custer County, and whereas every day, women, men, and children across Colorado suffer the pain and trauma of sexual assault upon survivors and our communities, and whereas this crime occurs far too frequently, goes unreported far too often, and leaves long-lasting physical and emotional scars, and whereas during National Sexual Assault Awareness Month, we recommit ourselves to lifting the veil of secrecy and shame surrounding sexual violence, expanding support for victims, and strengthening our response. And whereas sexual violence affects individuals of all ages, backgrounds, and circumstances. And whereas, as a community, we share the responsibility for protecting each other from sexual assault, supporting victims when it does occur, and bringing perpetrators to justice. And whereas at every level, we must work to provide necessary resources to victims of every circumstance, including medical attention, mental health services, relocation, and housing assistance, and advocacy during the criminal justice process. And whereas Custer County and Colorado can come together to increase awareness about sexual violence, decrease its frequency, hold offenders accountable, support victims, and heal lives. Now therefore, let it be proclaimed for Custer County in Colorado that the month of April 2024 is hereby designated as Sexual Assault Awareness Month in Custer County, and hereby urge the community to work together to educate themselves about sexual violence prevention to support survivors and speak out against harmful attitudes and actions. I make a motion that we proclaim April Sexual Assault Awareness Month.
I'll second it. And adopt the proclamation.
And adopt the proclamation.
I'll second that too. Quick question, is that Colorado only, or is there a nationwide recognition?
Is nationwide. The national awareness is nationwide.
Okay, just want to make sure that it should be more than just Colorado. Okay,
Okay, so I have a motion on the floor to proclaim April 2024 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month and to adopt, that was the proper name, I think, adopt the proclamation as read here today. Any further discussion here?
No, sir.
I would like to say thank you for what you and your organization do as well. It is would not be considered fun work, but necessary work, and I appreciate the work that you guys do as well. And thank you for bringing this to us.
Thank you guys for having us.
Anything else here? Public comment. Seeing none online either. Those in favor of proclaiming April 2024 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month and adopting this proclamation here today, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. The motion carries. Thank you very much. And thank you for being patient and waiting for us here today. I told her we'd probably get to her somewhere between 9:30 and 10, so I didn't say what day. All right, our next item of business today is the consideration of amending the payments to the district attorney's office. And that is for reimbursement for legal fees. And I believe this was an increase in the added invoice that came in from Lindsay for another $379.38, which makes our total, I don't believe our check has went out, that makes that total check $981.09.
Right.
I would hope that, I guess I'm looking at you, is there a possibility that these invoices will continue coming in on this, even though these cases are now?
On this particular one, I don't think so, because these are concluded.
Okay.
But I certainly, I'm a crystal
Yeah,
ball and
because-
can't tell you
Yeah,
whether they will or won't.
because we thought we were done with this
Right,
before, now he found another one, so, because I would hate to, we approved it on a dollar amount last time, and now we have to amend that, and I hate to keep coming back and amending it.
Well, without going into too much detail and so that we don't confuse the public, there are, I think, at least 3 other members of the DA's office who have issues that will likely result in requests made of the Board of County Commissioners, but those are not the big today.
Yeah.
I move we pay the amended payment and the total being 900 and what?
The increase of $379.38 for a total of $981.09.
So we'll pay the new payment of 989.
I would second that motion for a total of $981.09.
989.09. Okay.
Discussion.
Gotta do it.
I'll find a place to pull that out of. And then all these fees will go in underneath a new ledger line in time
with all the fees for all the cases.
It should be the, wherever we pulled the DA stuff out of it.
We just have to budget for that,
I know.
but I'm gonna put an extra line
Right,
underneath
on that
so,
particular-
for those
that
particular
area,
items,
yeah.
yep. And you all know these are running through Chaffey County, right?
Correct.
Just logistically.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
I saw there was a question on this one, but I'm assuming they're taking the
Yeah.
roll on this one.
Yeah, they're the bookkeeper on.
Yeah. Okay. Public comment. Seeing none, those in favor of amending the payment to the district attorney's office for legal fee reimbursements, with an increase of $379.38 for a total of $981.09. Signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. That motion carries. Any additional items of business?
Mr. Cantor can't turn off his phone.
Yeah.
He might
I'm
have
just
to
gonna
leave
check it at the door.
outside.
I'll check it with my knife.
So. Duly noted, he had it marked on the page and his phone went on. All right.
Thank you.
Well,
That brings us to public comment. Mr. Gilbert.
Yeah, last week, comments were made at the end of the meeting, and I had already given my public comment, so I couldn't respond at that point, so I'd like to do it now. I cannot allow the comments of Anthony Wheeler, self-proclaimed representative of God, to go on the record unchallenged. And that record is YouTube meeting of March 27th at 3 hours and 24 seconds. In a rambling, disjointed, threatening diatribe, Mr. Wheeler claims the single most important issue in this country is the fraudulent voting machines. That's a quote. No, the most important issue in this country is the attack based upon the defeated incumbent's sour grapes over losing an election on the foundational institutions of America. Elections are under attack based upon a mirage of false facts, also known as lies, of fraud, fraudulent systems, and deep state conspiracies. Congress is non-functional due to the subservience of one party to the defeated, adjudicated sexual predator, libel corporate fraudster, disproven election liar, who unbelievably is the nominee of that party. Contrary to what Mr. Wheeler and the bankrupt Mr. Pillow Guy would have you believe, the current election processes promote the concept of a republic, where we the people choose. Early voting, mail ballots, optical scanning, tabulation, all assure that as many of we the people as possible choose our representatives and know who has been chosen as soon as possible. The problem isn't the system, it's sore losers. So enough already. We the people must reject these attacks on our institutions. We must protect our free and fair elections and elect as our representatives leaders who will work for our interests and needs, not theirs. Elect leaders who will promote the heart and spirit of America, not the dark recesses of selfishness, power, and hate. Mr. Wheeler denigrates the millions of migrants fleeing persecution, poverty, oppression, starvation, murder, and rape as invaders who will, when kicked out of their rooms in the Westin Hotel, come for all our resources. I guess that makes our European, that is German, Irish, Italian, French, Dutch, Portuguese, Spanish, Polish, English, Scandinavian, Russian, Asian, you get my point. Ancestors, invaders, not if we still believe, as we did 141 years ago, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free. If we don't, then we may as well tear down the Statue of Liberty. And I will not swing that hammer. Mr. Wheeler turns to the oath the commissioners took to uphold the Constitution. If the voting system is not changed or the asylum system is not corrected, they will be complicit by willful neglect. Remember, they will be coming for you if you don't. One last point, Mr. Wheeler derives much of his justification for the veiled threats leveled in his manifesto from the Constitution of the United States, specifically Section 4 of Article 4, which he reads as, "The United States shall guarantee every state in this union a Republican form of government," and later adds more, "and protect each of them against invasion." He then ends the statement with, "Oh, that's not even necessary." What he omitted telling you, I think, is telling. The rest of that section reads, "And on application of the legislature or the executive branch, when the legislature cannot be convened against domestic violence." Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? None online. To be the case, this meeting is adjourned.